I wasn't actually looking for this car. Like many automotive rabbit holes, this story started somewhere completely different. It started with a Bugatti, specifically the Bugatti Type 41 Royale. There are many great cars in automotive history, but very few can honestly claim to belong to a category of their own. The Royale is one of those cars. When Ettore Bugatti created it in the late 1920s, he wasn't trying to build just another luxury automobile. He wanted to create the greatest car in the world, not one of the greatest, the greatest. The idea was simple. Build a machine so impressive that kings, emperors, and heads of state would consider nothing else. And the numbers show exactly how ambitious that idea was. The Bugatti Royale was enormous, around 6.5 meters long. The wheelbase alone was longer than many complete modern cars. It weighed several tons and was powered by a 12.7-litre straight-eight engine originally developed from aircraft technology. 12.7 litres. Today, a large family SUV might have a 2-litre engine. The Royale had more than 6 times that capacity. It produced around 300 horsepower, but the impressive part was not the power figure. It was the way it delivered it. The engine produced enormous torque at very low revs, meaning this huge machine could move with almost effortless authority. Even opening the bonnet was an event. Because of its enormous size, it was designed to be handled by 2 people. The radiator carried one of the most famous mascots in automotive history, the dancing elephant, created by Rembrandt Bugatti, Ettore's brother and a talented sculptor. Everything about the Royale was excessive, and that was exactly the point. Unfortunately for Ettore Bugatti, the timing could hardly have been worse. The Royale arrived just as the world entered the Great Depression. The people who might have bought one, European royalty and wealthy industrialists, suddenly had much more practical concerns than purchasing a 12-litre luxury car. Bugatti planned to build 25 examples. In the end, only 6 were completed. It was a commercial failure, but historically it became one of the most important cars ever created. Because although almost nobody could afford a Royale, almost everybody could be influenced by one. The design language remained unforgettable. The enormous bonnet, the sweeping fenders, the upright grille, the feeling that the car was not simply transportation, but a moving piece of architecture. Decades later, designers were still trying to capture that same sense of occasion. And this is where another unusual car enters the story, the Panther de Vil. In the 1970s, British designer Robert Jankel founded Panther Westwinds. His idea was simple. Take the elegance and drama of pre-war luxury cars and combine it with modern mechanical reliability. The result was the Panther de Vil. It looked like something from another era. Long bonnet, separate fenders, huge headlights, a massive grille. A design that seemed to ask why a normal car should be allowed to exist. Underneath, however, it was much more sensible than the appearance suggested. Most examples used Jaguar mechanical components, including Jaguar engines and running gear. So while the outside suggested a 1930s aristocrat, underneath it was a relatively modern British luxury car. Around 60 examples were produced between the 1970s and 1980s. Among those was perhaps the most extreme version ever built. The 6-door Panther de Vil created for a Malaysian prince. A normal limousine is already a fairly extravagant object. A 6-door Panther de Vil takes that idea into another territory entirely. It had an extended body, additional doors, luxury appointments, and the same dramatic styling as the standard car, only turned up even further. It looked less like a limousine and more like a vehicle designed for someone who considered ordinary luxury completely inadequate. And this is important because the Panther de Vil became one of the closest modern interpretations of the Bugatti Royale philosophy. It wasn't trying to be practical. It wasn't trying to disappear into traffic. It existed purely to make an entrance. The car also became famous for another reason. Cruella de Vil. When Disney created the animated version of 101 Dalmatians in 1961, Cruella's car was designed as a fictional exaggeration of pre-war luxury automobiles. Long hood, low body, huge proportions, a slightly sinister appearance. Later in the live-action films, actual Panther de Vils were used as Cruella's vehicle. The connection became permanent. The Panther de Vil became known as the real-world Cruella car. And while researching all of this, looking into cars influenced by the Bugatti Royale, the Panther de Vil, and that extraordinary six-door limousine, I found another car. A car that was even more unusual. The Ford Panther. This was not built by a major manufacturer. There was no factory production line, no advertising campaign, no design department with hundreds of people, just one builder with a vision. According to a former owner interviewed about the car, the builder was a retired Delta Airlines pilot who spent years creating this one-off machine. And when you see the result, you understand that this was not just a hobby project. This was an obsession. The car first appeared publicly through Streetside Classics in Florida and attracted attention because it was unlike almost anything else on the market. It was listed for around $115,000. The most interesting detail was the mileage. Only 37 miles were shown at the time. 37 miles. Someone had created one of the most complicated custom cars imaginable and barely driven it. The Ford Panther starts with the rear section of a 1934 Ford Roadster. That gives it its American identity, but everything ahead of that is a mixture of European inspiration and pure imagination. The long flowing fenders are strongly influenced by the Mercedes-Benz 540K. The 504K was one of the greatest luxury cars of the 1930s. It combined elegance, performance, and enormous presence. Its supercharged straight-eight engine and dramatic bodywork made it one of the ultimate pre-war grand touring machines. The front grille of the Ford Panther takes inspiration from another legendary car, the Jaguar SS100. So what we have is an American hot rod at the rear, a German luxury car influence along the sides, and a British sports car influence at the front. Normally, combining these ideas would be a recipe for confusion. But somehow it works. The Ford Panther looks like it belongs in the same family as the cars that inspired it. It has that same pre-war sense of drama. The feeling that every journey should involve a chauffeur, a country estate, and possibly a small orchestra waiting at the destination. Then we get to the engineering. And this is where the Ford Panther stops being unusual and becomes genuinely extraordinary. Because it does not have one V8 engine, it has three Chevrolet 350 small block V8 engines, 24 cylinders. One car. Most people would consider one V8 more than enough for a custom build. The builder of the Ford Panther clearly disagreed. The engines are arranged in a custom-built chassis designed specifically for this setup. The front and rear engines provide power, while the center engine assists with cooling. It is the kind of engineering solution that sounds completely unreasonable until you see how carefully it was executed. This was not simply someone placing extra engines into a car for attention. The entire vehicle was designed around the concept. The hood itself is part of the theater. Instead of simply opening like a normal car, it uses pneumatic cylinders and electric mechanisms to slowly lift and reveal the engine compartment. At a car show, this becomes a performance. The crowd gathers, the hood rises, and underneath are three polished V8 engines sitting proudly on display. The engine bay is finished to the same standard as the exterior. Chrome, polished components, custom details, everything designed to be seen. And the attention to detail does not stop there. The chassis underneath is also finished beautifully. Many show visitors reportedly spend time looking underneath the car because the craftsmanship continues below the bodywork. That says a lot. Usually people look under a car because they are searching for problems. With the Ford Panther, they look underneath because they expect to find more artwork. Inside, the theme continues. The cabin is covered in red leather. The seats, the door panels, the carpets, the dashboard. Everything follows the same dramatic color scheme. Even the gauge needles were matched to the interior. That small detail tells you everything about the person who built it. This was not about creating something merely functional. It was about creating something complete. Every decision, no matter how small, followed the same idea. And then there is the obvious comparison. The Ford Panther looks exactly like something Cruella de Vil would drive. The resemblance is impossible to ignore. The long bonnet, the sweeping fenders, the aggressive front end, the theatrical proportions. It has the same visual language as the car from the Disney films. But the interesting part is that it is not a copy. The Ford Panther did inspiration directly from Cruella's car. The timeline makes that impossible. Instead, Both cars came from the same source. The great luxury cars of the 1930s. The Bugatti Royale, the Mercedes-Benz 540K. The elegant but intimidating machines built for people who wanted to arrive somewhere and make everyone notice. Disney exaggerated those ideas for animation. The builder of the Ford Panther brought them into the real world. The result is a car that looks like a cartoon villain vehicle, but is actually a carefully engineered custom machine. And that is what makes it fascinating. Because the Ford Panther represents something that has almost disappeared from the automotive world. Individual creativity. Today, cars are developed through enormous teams. Engineers, designers, accountants, safety experts, and marketing departments all working together. The Ford Panther came from a completely different process. One person had an idea. One person decided that a 1934 Ford, Mercedes 540K styling, Jaguar SS100 inspiration, and 3 V8 engines belonged together. And then they built it. There was no market research, no customer survey, no production target, just imagination and determination. The result is completely unique. It is excessive, it is impractical, it is unnecessary, and that is exactly why it is memorable. A Bugatti Royale inspired a Panther de Vil. The Panther de Vil became the real-life Cruella car. And somewhere along the way, those same ideas inspired a one-off Ford Panther with 24 cylinders and a hood that opens like a theatre curtain. That is the wonderful thing about automotive history. Design ideas travel. They move across decades and continents. They are copied, modified, exaggerated, and reinvented. Sometimes they end up in museums. Sometimes they end up in auctions. And sometimes they end up as a one-of-a-kind custom car sitting in a showroom, waiting for someone to discover it. The Ford Panther may never become one of the most valuable cars in history. It may never have the fame of a Bugatti Royale. But it has something many famous cars do not. A story. A story about one person's obsession, one extraordinary idea, and the desire to build something that nobody else had ever built before. And honestly, that might be the most interesting thing a car can have.